Hello, my name's Andy. Welcome to episode 52 of Keeping Water. As this is the 52nd episode, and as I've made one main episode every week, this is the final episode of my first year of YouTubing. Therefore, it seems like a good point to review how things have gone, good and bad. I'll also explain why I set the channel up in the first place, what my aims for it were, and what they will be into year 2 of the channel. Obviously, I wouldn't be still making videos if it wasn't for all of you watching and engaging. YouTube, by and large, is a wonderful thing. As long as you have something to record and upload videos on, you can create a channel and share it with the world. It's obviously not quite that simple, and there's all the uniqueness of YouTube to get used to, and although my channel isn't the largest, it can be a really rewarding and supportive hobby. But more of that in the proper review. Right, let's get started. Like many people, I set up the channel last year during lockdown. However, my primary motivation wasn't to document the progress of my pond and fish and to share with others what I do that works or often doesn't. Instead, my initial interest was to create videos, as I really enjoy video editing. In fact, I first considered a range of subjects I felt I could cover, including fitness, mental health, and even video games. But eventually I chose my pond, as I felt it best lent itself to consistent content, and also because I enjoyed videoing the fish in the past. As well as the challenges of a global pandemic-based lockdown, I was also recovering from a period of depression, and although my depression isn't particularly negatively or positively affected by life events, or the usual effective approaches such as exercise or engagement in activities, having something to focus on other than my low mood and COVID was something I felt couldn't hurt. Deciding on entering the world of YouTube, though, was something of a risky choice, however, as the likes and dislikes nature of social media in general, and YouTube in particular, can make it a challenging place if you're at risk of negative thoughts and low moods. However, the motivation of making videos and creating content was greater than any other worries I may have had. And anyway, I'm slightly too long in the tooth to be too concerned about amassing thousands of subscribers and likes. Maybe. The first decision I had to make was in choosing a name, although I was able to come up with Keeping Water pretty quickly. I did some searching for what other pond keepers choose, and they tended to fall into a number of types. Those that use their name in the title, those that centred on the type of pond or inhabitants, or more vague and esoteric names like Keeping Water. For a few reasons related to how YouTube works, a different name, for instance Andy's Carp Pond, may have worked better for bringing in views and helping the channel be found, but by and large I'm happy with my choice. My next decision to make was what form my videos were going to take, by which I mean what sort of content and information I wanted to share and how I wanted to present it. I knew I didn't have the confidence to film myself talking to camera. In fact, I didn't really want to do voiceovers either. I started making the first video and realised quickly that adding text for everything I wanted to say was going to take such a long time that the only feasible approach was to bite the bullet and at the very least do a commentary. I was also very keen to make the fish the centre of the channel and try to show not only their growth and colour, but more their behaviour and interactions, especially as these changed and developed throughout the seasons. As for the practicalities of making videos, I couldn't really afford to buy equipment, but I had an old GoPro, my iPhone and a digital stills camera, and I had a PC to edit on. As for software, I went for free options, so I've used Shotcut and Paint.net. They've served me really well, and with some Googling and experimenting, I've been able to achieve most of the editing tasks I've wanted. Although the way I've made videos has evolved a little over the year, and I've improved both techniques and workflow, there are two main ways I go about making videos, the basics of which have remained the same. The first way is to have a topic that I want to present, plan what I want to cover and say, record a commentary, and then film or find footage to complement it, which I then edit to fit the commentary. The second and most common way is to film footage, either when completing work in or around the pond, or footage of the fish, and then complete commentary to fit what I filmed. At this point, I'll explain why I dub over commentary rather than talk about what I'm doing as I do it. The primary reason is that both my iPhone and GoPro have sound issues. The iPhone due to the case I have it in, and the GoPro, well, because it's old. The slightly less important reason is that I have to take multiple takes just talking over footage. If I was to be filming and even also doing things while trying to talk, I think it would take me even longer to get usable footage. I'm going to look at the good and bad in terms of a few aspects of being a YouTuber. They're not in any particular order, so here goes. I've stuck to my weekly episode plan. It looked a little dodgy after episode 6 as I was worrying about running out of ideas, but by and large the life of a pond usually provides you with content without having to think too hard. Having said that, it probably wouldn't take too much detective work to spot the filler episodes, the Boxing Day one, the retro ones, and the what if one, and there's still the odd one here and there. I think a combination of lack of time, a lack of ideas, and just learning the ropes meant they didn't really work. I think I've got better at making videos, particularly in some of the things that maybe people who watch don't get to see, by which I mean workflow and efficiency. How I put videos together, record commentary, compile videos, upload pics to social media, plan filming, etc. has all become smoother and less time consuming. Overall though, I think I've done well to consistently upload. It's been hard work at times, and while quality and engagement are another story, getting into the routine of making videos and getting better at it is a positive. On to another good and bad aspect of the channel. I really wanted, as much as possible, to make fish the focus of the channel, not just in terms of growth and looks as I've said, but in terms of behaviour and interactions. And I've kind of managed it. I think I've captured some interesting stuff. The common carp feeding far less than the mirror last year, the same fish bullying the crucian carp this year, the activity and behaviour as the water temperatures lowered and then raised again before and after winter, and the way the rudd follow the carp looking for food they lose, as examples. My favourite video I've made, episode 6, detailed the behaviour of the fish when feeding, and it's really exactly the kind of episode I enjoy making the most. And I'd do more of it, except for two things. There's only so much you can document about a fixed number of fish in a small garden pond, and two, they're by far not the most popular type of videos I make, but more about that later. I have a bit of a love-hate relationship with subscriber numbers and the YouTube game. I had little ambition in terms of numbers when I started. I looked at 100 by the end of the first year, but it was somewhat a random amount, but I'm delighted to say I'm over 3 times that now. However, there's quite a few YouTubers who started around the same time as me, or even later than me, who have many more, even above the 1000 magical monetization point. I can't pretend that I'm adverse to eventually getting monetized and earning some pocket money from what is essentially a hobby, but it's not really a goal or a priority for the channel. Additionally, I don't really think I'll ever get there, and anyway there's things I'd have to do differently in regard of the glorious YouTube algorithm that I'm not sure I'd want to, but more of all that later too. It's easy to look at my views and compare them to not only much bigger and more established pond keepers, but also to YouTubers in general, and think that I don't get very many. Which is partly true. However, I tend to think of the number of views as if it were people turning up in person to a presentation or talk, and then it's a fair few people really. Whether or not they all stay to the end, which as a YouTube analytic I just don't ever look at, a bit too far down the rabbit hole for me. It's a win though, because over 100 people view my videos weekly as a minimum. I get some supportive comments regularly, and I'm pretty content overall. Again, I will cover this a little more later on. I think that by and large the visual quality of my videos is pretty good, and the editing is okay, not too fussy and over the top, but still attempting some complexity and mood setting. Well, as much as my free software allows anyway. The only consistent downside is my GoPro, which, aside from battery issues, presents some visual quality problems for me. Firstly, it only films in 1080p, not too bad as my uploaded videos are the same resolution, but it does reduce the ability to focus on particular areas of the frame without losing quality. Secondly, the colours are really washed out in the raw footage. This is somewhat consistent with filming underwater, and especially in low light, but it doesn't always do justice to the environment it's capturing. I overcome this in post by applying white balance and colour grading filters, but it's not as good as having a better quality original image. The major quality issue I have with my videos though is audio. It's both the aspect I find the most annoying and the most difficult, and in addition the one I don't feel I've really got on top of. The first issue is the commentary voiceover I record. Even though I have reasonable quality mic, the sound it records is really quiet, and increasing the volume while editing is a tricky balance of trying to get it loud enough while not distorting the quality. As a result, I also spend a fair amount of time reducing the volume of almost every other sound to the voiceover's level. The resultant volume of the finished videos is therefore quite low, but I think is at least consistent and balanced, but I would prefer a better solution in the future. The obvious one would be to get some audio hardware to use between the mic and the PC, but that's obviously not free, so we'll have to see. So, looking at the bad and the good leads me to thinking what I can do to improve on or do differently over the next 12 months. Not necessarily just to get more subscribers or more views, but to keep the channel growing and slowly getting better. I'm going to continue with weekly uploads. I'll also continue with the clip videos. They are slightly self-indulgent and don't get a huge amount of views, but I enjoy making them, so that's reason enough. I'd like to make changes to how I capture audio and also have higher resolution underwater video, but as I've said, they're both money dependent, so won't change overnight. I'll be making superficial changes to the look of the channel, including the thumbnails and the intro-outro videos. Again, not really to improve views etc, just because I like to tweak and create. In fact, my new intro will probably be less compliant with YouTube best practice. So, as I mentioned earlier, I'm pretty happy with how well my channel's done in terms of subs etc, but I'm aware that there's quite a few channels that started at the same time as me, or even afterwards, that have far more subs. It's interesting to think about why that is, not in a competitive or jealous sense, or due to being too self-critical. After all, comparison is the thief of joy. But to try to do better and keep the channel moving forward, it's useful to look at what works and what viewers enjoy watching. So, and based on absolutely no scientific research, but from many hours of watching YouTube, here's what I think makes for a successful pond-related YouTube channel. 1. Knowledge and skill. Without doubt, having a strong knowledge base behind you, having skills in many aspects of pond keeping, be it building a pond, making a new type of filter, or raising fish, will attract viewers and keep them coming back. I think the two YouTubers with the most subscribers in the pond keeping world, at least in the UK anyway, Righty and Adam Julian, have that in spades, while sharing it through imaginative and successful projects. So how do I do in this area? I'm not utterly clueless, but equally I'm relatively early on my pond keeping journey, while also having a tendency to not always follow accepted practice. So I'm not always sure that adds up to being a strong area for me, and to improve that will take time as I develop more experience and knowledge. 2. Pond and fish. Again, I've not done any research, but it seems, on YouTube at least, that koi keeping is the most popular type of pond keeping. Therefore it makes sense that more people would be looking for videos about koi and koi ponds than other sorts of ponds and fish. As for me, I don't have koi, and I have a more old-fashioned sort of pond. As my pond is reasonably large though and has carp in it, there are obviously overlaps between what I do and what people who keep koi would be looking for on YouTube. But obviously, if you have koi, or if you're thinking of keeping koi, then you'll very sensibly turn to one of the hundreds of koi focused channels instead. I'm not really able to affect this. I'm not going to keep koi or change the basic style of my pond, so this will be a permanent factor. I do aim over the years to improve the landscaping around my pond, as well as planning to add more equipment that is often used with koi ponds, but generally I can't change too much in this area. 3. Personality. There's no avoiding it. Your personality will attract or repel viewers. James the Koi Whisperer, for example, in addition to having a ton of knowledge and skills, a shiny new pond and fabulous fish, has a personality that engages with his viewers and keeps them coming back for more. There's lots of other YouTubers who, while being very different to James, also have engaging styles and manners that make people want to watch. I'm not so much like that. The way I make videos means I'm pretty much a disembodied voice with, and without being too hard on myself, little in the way of charisma. Dodgy audio doesn't help, but this is an area where maybe I could improve. I do have a plan moving forward to change how I present videos, but again, there's some purchases needed, so it may take a while. Hopefully, well, indeed certainly, this will happen in year 2. Looking into other factors that may influence how well my videos do, I'll talk about content for a bit, and what does well and what doesn't. As I've said, I really like making videos that focus on the fish and their behaviour and interactions. I prefer those ones to the ones I make about making a filter, for example, but in terms of views, the story is different. The first of my videos that reached 1,000 views was one of the ones I made about building my moving bed. The second was a really clickbaity one I made about turning the last chamber in my multi-bay into a sort of upflow. The videos that are mostly or completely about the fish and their lives underwater, however, rarely, if ever, get more than 15 to 20% of the total views that the filter making ones get. Which makes sense though, most of us go on YouTube to learn about things, find about how people do things that we're interested in, and to see new ideas. So those videos would obviously get more views. What's also interesting though is what the picture is when I look at which videos get the likes, or at least which videos get the most viewers proportionally to click on the like button. And it's not the filter build ones, it's the fish being cool ones. Although the fishy ones get at most a quarter of the views, they get as many or more likes. Which might mean a couple of things: that I make rubbish filter build videos, or filters, or that people who like my fish ones really like them. I prefer the second idea. I'll end this look at making YouTube videos by looking at the dark and mysterious world of what's often called the YouTube algorithm, which isn't entirely accurate, but never mind. There's lots you can do to make your channel work more successfully. Some are confusing and some not. Some are fun, or at least painless to address, some not so much. Video intros should come after a quick preface saying what's coming up in the video and be brief, approximately 20 seconds. Video content shouldn't be too front heavy, meaning there should be interesting info or topics towards the end of the video to keep viewers engaged. I've sort of changed my videos over the year, and as much as I can followed this pattern, but to be honest, not particularly well, and I don't really like doing it. Perhaps foolishly, year 2 videos, starting from next week, will change this format with a longer intro followed by a chat outlining what's in the episode. This is really due to it being my personal preference, and anyway, some really successful YouTube channels buck the trend and follow this format. There's a lot of guidance around thumbnails, e.g. have a clear readable text that stands out and focuses on the key info, an image or images that show the content and even drama of the episode, and make sure that both text and image work at whatever size the thumbnail is being shown at. I tend to not entirely follow this. I by and large just choose a still from the episode that I like the best, and then just add the channel name, episode number and title. I can't say that anything really pops out, and they may be a little boring to some, but I mostly like them. I can't imagine me ever doing the YouTube expression selfie for thumbnails. The shocked, sad, happy, surprised face designed to really sell the video content. Not many people do, to be honest, but studies show they really do work, in spite of them being a little obvious. I'm going to change the thumbnail structure a little in year 2, an evolution rather than a revolution. Info will be clearer and they will be quicker to make, which helps me if nothing else. In regard of titles, there's a ton of evidence to show that it's really important in attracting viewers. The obvious example is to add really emotive words, like for instance disaster, when all that really happened was a pipe leaked a little. Now, I tested this earlier in the year. As I said earlier, I made a little clickbaity video about sort of turning part of my filtration into an upflow filter, which were a hot topic at the time, still are. Now, it wasn't an absolute lie. I was clear in the description and the intro, and the final chamber did have upwards flowing water through trapped K+ media, but yep, it was a bit of an exaggeration. Anyway, that video reached 1,000 views in the quickest time of any and is the most viewed video on my channel. So, a little creativity in naming your videos and making your thumbnails will increase your views. However, it's not something I particularly like and won't be doing much of in the future. Again, evidence will say that asking people to subscribe and like your video will result in more subs and likes than if you don't, regardless of the quality of your content. I must confess that I find it a little uncomfortable to do, for reasons I'm not quite sure of, which is why for a few weeks I did it with some added quirky nonsense about how magical the subscribe button was, just so I felt a little better about doing it. I then did a little experiment. I stopped asking, and sure enough, even my slow rate of subs became even slower, so I've started asking again, and I'll probably stick with it. It's a benign but effective part of the YouTube game, and I'm really not that proud. Right, that's it for this somewhat self-indulgent look at the first year of my channel. Thank you so much for watching. I did plan to do a review of the pond over the last 12 months, but I think I'll leave it for another time. Please feel free to share your thoughts about the channel, how YouTube works, how you address its issues, and what you might do differently to me in the comment section below. Next week will be episode 53, or the first of year 2, and I hope you'll come back and join me over another 12 months. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.